Hi, I'm Matthew Craig, and this is my project, Traffic Accident Analysis, investigating the relationship between population density and fatal crash rates. Basically, for this project, I wanted to look at a couple things. Primarily, how does population density affect the rates of fatal crashes? There were two research questions, that being the first one. The other research question was, could I identify areas of low population density and high fatal crash rates to potentially pinpoint specific like areas or locations or roads that were particularly unsafe? I had this idea from when I was doing a cross country from California to Alabama and back. There were a couple stretches of just the middle of nowhere where the roads would just like randomly turn or just spotty areas that made me feel very unsafe on the road. So I was curious to see if there was any data that supported that those areas were a bit risky. Jumping into our data though, our data is straight from data.gov. I was basically able to find a big old list of reported car crashes, the number of fatalities per car crash, where it happened, the latitude, the longitude, so I can pinpoint where it happened, and then also tell me very nicely like the state and the city. Using this data, I was able to concatenate like about 7 years worth of data from about 2015 to 2023. Where that's what that's about 8, about 8 years. Sorry, of data where I was able to put it all together into one massive CSV file to analyze. My other data source is from straight up U.S. Census data. I was able to find the population and like the estimate of basically every city in the United States, and I ended up using about the median of the years I analyzed for the car crashes, which was about 2020. Um, I think a better way potentially to do this would to be take a each year's census data and I compare it that way, but this was easier and quicker and saved me some time, so we did it this way. My first step in this project was just trying to get a feel of how exactly does population density compare with fatal crash rate? How do they interact? So as we can see with this little graph here, um, as our population density increases, on average, our amount of car crashes increases as well. We even see some areas up here with getting up to 200 people per 100K population, which if you, that's absurd if you think about it. Um, every 100 people that are in some of these areas, 200 of them are dying. Um, so that was even at the start of this graph was a bit startling to me just how frequent fatal car crashes occurred. But moving on to the machine learning section, I decided to do a cluster analysis first. So I started that with doing the elbow method, where we kind of take a look at the optimal number of clusters. I decided about four was where we started to see fall off here. So I decided right here at the elbow, four would be our number of clusters that we would look at. And then this is the actual cluster analysis that I ran. We can see with these distinct clusters, I think they're pretty good. Um, I think if we had a fifth cluster, which we looking at our graph, we probably could have done, we'd have this area be its own cluster over here. But I'm liking this close clustered spots over here. I think this did a pretty good job. But I think theoretically we could have done five and had this be its own section as well. In the end, though, I ended up doing a random forest analysis on this. I did a couple of different ones, which I don't have time to dive into because I'm already at the 4 minute mark. However, this one was the most accurate. I achieved an R square score of 0.86, which, considering the data I was using and the sort of the averages I was taking for population density, it is pretty good in my opinion. And we were taking in a bunch of data regarding population density, where it occurred, and a couple other features that we saw in our CSV file, and it output the predicted crash rate, and the results here are pretty decent. We're achieving 86% accuracy essentially, which is very nice. This is the final step that I did. This one was pretty fun to make. Basically, I wanted to do a visualizer of sort of the most dangerous areas where we see like these sort of risky zones. A couple to point out here. If we look down here, we see that Orange County and San Bernardino are two like very high areas for population. It's literally in the top 20 of crash rate per capita. It's a bit spooky. And then we see this area right here in the middle of the country, which I wanted to point out. It didn't make the top 20 list, but I did want to point out this was the area that was freaking me out on my drive. I was essentially routed north through like the northern section of Texas, and then through like this middle part of the country. And it was about here that I was having like issues with the road and kind of freaking out. And so it was interesting to see on my graph that this was actually an area of high reported crash rates, essentially. But jumping over to questions, that's pretty much it. And thank you for watching.